The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Federation was the largest room ever built by any species in the known universe. Its ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed inside it. Floating platforms held representatives from 12 different alien species, each one older and more powerful than humanity could ever dream of becoming. Ambassador Kevin Park stood at the smallest platform in the chamber. It floated at the lowest level, barely above the floor, while the other species sat high above him like judges looking down at a criminal. Kevin was 43 years old, with gray hair at his temples and tired lines around his eyes. He had spent 15 years fighting for humanity's place in the Federation. Today, it seemed like all that work meant nothing. High Counselor Draven of the Velthari Empire rose from his seat. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms that moved like snakes when he talked. His species had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves. He looked at Kevin the way a person might look at an insect. "Fellow members of the Council," Draven said, his voice echoing through the massive chamber, "we gather today to vote on a matter of great importance. The question before us is simple. Should humanity continue to hold membership in this federation?" Kevin felt his hands tighten into fists at his sides. He already knew what was coming. Humans have been members of this body for exactly 207 years, Draven continued. In that time, they have contributed nothing of value. Their technology is primitive. Their lifespans are embarrassingly short. They breed too quickly and think too slowly. They solve most of their problems with violence. Laughter filled the chamber. The Kreth delegation clicked their mandibles together in amusement. They were insect-like creatures with hard shells and multiple eyes. The Orvani, beings made of living crystal, pulsed with bright light that meant they found something funny. Even the Molken, huge creatures that looked like walking mountains, shook their heads and made rumbling sounds of agreement. Kevin said nothing. He had learned long ago that defending humanity only made the other species laugh harder. "I move that we permanently expel humanity from the Galactic Federation," Draven announced. "They are not worthy of sitting among us. They never were." More laughter. More clicking and pulsing and rumbling. Kevin looked down at the small datapad in his hand. On its screen, a single file waited to be opened. The file name was simple. Evidence. His colleague, Lieutenant Rachel Kim, had sent it to him just 6 hours ago from the border colonies. The transmission had been weak and full of static. Rachel's voice had been urgent, almost desperate. "Kevin, you have to show them," she had said. "Promise me. Whatever happens, make them watch it. Make them see what really happened." Then the transmission had cut off. Kevin had tried to contact her 100 times since then. There was no response. The vote began. One by one, each species announced their decision. The Velthari vote yes for expulsion. The Kreth vote yes for expulsion. The Orvani vote yes for expulsion. Kevin watched the numbers climb. Yes, yes, yes. Species that humanity had tried to befriend for 2 centuries were throwing them away like garbage. The Molken vote yes for expulsion. The Sarvani vote yes for expulsion. Only the Thornari abstained. They were ancient beings that looked like walking trees. They had not spoken in the council for 40 years. No one knew why they stayed silent. And no one dared to ask. 11 species voted yes. The motion passed. Draven smiled with all 3 of his mouths. "The decision is made. Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Federation. Ambassador Park, you have 1 hour to remove yourself and all human staff from this station." Kevin did not move. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He had learned that trick from Rachel. She always said that showing fear to aliens only made them respect you less. "Before this decision is made final," Kevin said, his voice steady, "I request the right to present evidence to this council." The laughter started again, but Kevin continued speaking over it. "According to Federation law, Section 47, Article 3, any species facing expulsion has the right to present a defense before the vote is sealed. I am using that right now." Draven's smile faded. He had forgotten about that law. Most species had forgotten about it because no one had ever needed to use it before. What evidence could a human possibly present? Draven asked. What could you show us that would change anything? Kevin held up the datapad. I want to show you what really happened at Colony 17. The laughter stopped immediately. The chamber became very quiet. Colony 17 was a name that no one in the Federation liked to mention. It had been a joint settlement on the edge of Federation space, home to 40,000 beings from 8 different species. 6 months ago, all contact with the colony had been lost. The Federation sent a single ship to investigate. When it returned, the official report said that the colony had been destroyed by a natural disaster, a solar flare, an earthquake, something unavoidable and tragic. The records were sealed. The families of the dead were told to mourn quietly and not ask questions. Life in the Federation continued as normal, but Kevin had seen Rachel's transmission. He knew the truth. The records of Colony 17 are classified, Draven said quickly. They cannot be shown in this chamber. The records were classified by the Council, Kevin replied. But this video was recorded by humans. It belongs to us, and I am choosing to share it. He tapped the datapad before anyone could stop him. The lights in the chamber dimmed automatically as a massive holographic display activated in the center of the room. Rachel Kim's face appeared on the screen. She was covered in blood and dirt. Her hair was messy and her eyes were red from crying. But her voice was strong. This is Lieutenant Rachel Kim, she said. Colony 17. If anyone is receiving this message, please listen carefully. The Federation has abandoned us. But we are still fighting. We are still here. The alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. For the first time in 200 years, they were actually paying attention to a human. Kevin stepped back and let the video speak for itself. Rachel had made him promise to show them. She had made him swear it. He was keeping that promise now. Whatever they saw next would change everything. The holographic image of Rachel Kim floated in the center of the grand chamber. Every alien eye was fixed on her face. Blood ran down her cheek from a cut on her forehead. But she did not wipe it away. Her hands were busy holding the camera steady. This is day 1 of the siege, Rachel said into the camera. 12 hours ago, the Hollow attacked Colony 17 without warning. I am recording this so that someone, somewhere, will know what really happened here. A cold fear spread through the chamber at the mention of that name, the Hollow. They were ancient machines from beyond the edges of known space. Stories said they had destroyed 1,000 civilizations before the Federation even existed. Most species believed they were extinct. Others believed they were just myths, scary stories told to frighten children. But Rachel's next words destroyed that comfortable belief. The Hollow are real, she said. Their ships came out of nowhere. Hundreds of them. They started bombing the outer settlements within minutes of arriving. We sent emergency signals to the Federation fleet stationed nearby. We begged for help. Rachel paused. Her jaw tightened with anger. The Federation responded. They sent ships. But those ships only evacuated their own people. The Velthari took the Velthari colonists. The Kreth took the Kreth. The Orvani took the Orvani. When we asked them to help evacuate everyone else, they said no. They said there was not enough room. They said the other species were not their responsibility. In the Grand Chamber, the Velthari delegation shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Councillor Draven's blue skin turned slightly purple with embarrassment. They left us behind, Rachel continued. 40,000 people from 8 species. The Federation left us to die. Well, the video changed. It now showed external camera footage from the colony's security system. The sky was filled with black ships, shaped like giant insects. They moved in perfect formation, blocking out the sun. Beams of red light shot down from them, turning buildings into ash and dust. People were running through the streets. Kreth families carried their young on their backs. Orvani elders moved slowly, their crystal bodies cracking from the stress. Mulkan workers tried to shield smaller beings with their massive bodies. Everyone was screaming. Everyone was afraid. And everyone was running toward the same place, the human district. Kevin Park watched the video from his small platform. He had seen it before, but it still made his chest hurt. The human district was the poorest part of Colony 17. The buildings were small and simple. The technology was basic. But it was the only part of the colony that still had working defenses. A new face appeared on the screen. A man in a dirty military uniform stood on top of a wall, shouting orders to the chaos below. His name was Sergeant Daniel Cho. He was 31 years old. Before Colony 17, he had been a schoolteacher on Earth. "Listen to me," Daniel shouted to the crowd of terrified aliens. "The underground shelters are open. Women and children first. Move quickly but do not push. We will protect you." A Creeth mother stopped in front of him. Her mandibles were shaking with fear. She held 3 small children against her chest. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you help us? Your Federation ships left too." "Why?" Daniel jumped down from the wall and gently guided her toward the shelter entrance. "Those were not our ships," he said. "Humans did not leave. Humans are still here. And we are not going anywhere." The video showed more scenes from that first day. Human soldiers setting up defensive positions around the district. Human doctors treating wounded aliens in makeshift hospitals. Human engineers fixing broken equipment with tape and wire and desperate hope. There were only 3,000 humans in Colony 17. Their military force was even smaller. Just 200 soldiers, most of them young and inexperienced. They had basic weapons. No heavy armor, no air support. They had nothing except the stubborn refusal to abandon the people around them. Rachel's voice returned over the footage. By the end of day 1, over 30,000 alien civilians had reached the human district. Our shelters were full. People were sleeping in hallways and storage rooms. We shared our food and water with everyone. It was not much, but it was all we had. The video showed a human woman in a white coat. Her name was Dr. Jenny Yoon. She was kneeling next to a wounded Velthari child. The child was crying. Its blue skin burned and blistered. Jenny spoke softly to it. Even though the child could not understand her language, she cleaned its wounds with gentle hands. She gave it medicine to stop the pain. The child's mother watched from nearby. Tears ran down her alien face. "Thank you," the mother whispered in broken English. "Thank you." Jenny just nodded and moved to the next patient. There were hundreds more waiting. Counselor Draven watched this scene with wide eyes. The Velthari child in the video could have been his own grandchild. The species was the same. The fear was the same. And a human, a primitive and violent human, was saving its life. Rachel appeared on screen again. The background had changed. She was now inside a command center filled with broken computers and flickering lights. "Day 2, she said. "The Hollow have surrounded the human district. They know we are protecting the civilians. They know we are the only resistance left. They are testing our defenses, looking for weak points." She turned the camera to show a map on the wall. Red dots covered almost every area. Blue dots, representing human forces, formed a thin circle around a small section of the colony. "We cannot win this fight," Rachel admitted. "We do not have the weapons or the numbers. But we can buy time. Every hour we hold, more civilians can escape through the underground tunnels. We have sent word to other colonies. Help might come, it might not. We cannot control that." She looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were hard and determined. "What we can control is how we face this. We can control whether we stand or run." The Federation ran. They calculated the cost of saving lives and decided it was too high. Rachel shook her head slowly. "Humans do not calculate like that. We never have. We see people in danger, and we help them. It is that simple. It is always that simple." The video paused. Rachel's face hung frozen in the air above the grand chamber. Kevin looked up at the alien representatives. Their laughter was gone. Their mockery was forgotten. They were staring at the screen with expressions he had never seen before. It looked almost like shame. "This is only the beginning," Kevin said quietly. "There are 5 more days of footage. Do you want me to stop?" No one answered. Kevin nodded and pressed play. The real story of Colony 17 was about to continue. The video continued playing in the Grand Chamber. Day 3 of the siege began with fire falling from the sky. The Hollow had stopped testing the human defenses. Now they were attacking with full force. Their black ships filled the air like a swarm of angry insects. Red beams of death cut through buildings and streets. The ground shook with explosions that never seemed to stop. Private Tommy Lee was 20 years old. He had joined the military because he wanted to travel and see the galaxy. He had never expected to die on a forgotten colony at the edge of known space. But as the Hollow ground forces marched toward his position, he did not run. He raised his weapon and fired. The footage showed Tommy and his squad fighting from behind a broken wall. The Hollow soldiers were terrifying. They were machines shaped like tall metal skeletons. Their eyes glowed red. They moved without fear, because they could not feel fear. They were not alive. They were just weapons designed to kill. A scream came from behind Tommy's position. A wounded Molken warrior had fallen in the open street. The huge alien tried to crawl toward cover, but his legs were too damaged to move. Hollow soldiers turned toward him, raising their weapons. Tommy did not think. He jumped over the wall and ran into the open. The Molken warrior weighed 3 times more than Tommy. Moving him should have been impossible. But Tommy grabbed the alien's arm and pulled with all his strength. Bullets flew past his head. One hit his shoulder, and blood sprayed across his uniform. But he did not stop. He dragged the Molken inch by inch until they both fell behind the wall. "You are insane," the Molken said, his deep voice full of shock. "You could have died." Tommy laughed even though it hurt. "I probably still will. But at least I will not die alone." The Molken stared at him for a long moment. Then he reached down and picked up a weapon from a fallen soldier. "Then I will die with you, human." In the Grand Chamber, the Molken delegation watched this scene in complete silence. One of them, an old warrior with scars covering his stone-like skin, wiped something wet from his eye. The video moved to another part of the colony. Dr. Jenny Yoon was still working in the makeshift hospital, but things had gotten much worse. The ceiling had collapsed in several places. Wounded patients lay everywhere, on tables, on the floor, on pieces of broken furniture. There were not enough beds. There were not enough supplies. There were not enough hands. A Velthari woman ran into the hospital carrying a small child. The child was not breathing. "Please," the woman screamed. "Please help my daughter." Jenny was already treating another patient. Her hands were covered in blood. Her face was pale with exhaustion. She had not slept in 3 days. But she looked at the child, and something changed in her eyes. "Bring her here," Jenny said. She worked on the child for 15 minutes. She pushed air into its lungs. She pressed on its chest. She refused to give up even when the child's skin turned cold. Everyone else in the room had stopped to watch. Everyone believed it was too late. Then the child coughed. Then the child opened its eyes. The Velthari mother collapsed to her knees, crying so hard she could not speak. Jenny handed the child back to her and immediately returned to her other patients. She did not celebrate. She did not rest. There was too much work to do. Counselor Draven could not look away from the screen. The doctor who had saved that child was human. The species he had called primitive. The species he had voted to expel. She had worked miracles with her bare hands while his people had run away. The video changed again. This time it showed a meeting inside the command center. Rachel Kim stood at the front of the room. Around her sat humans and aliens together. Kreth soldiers sat next to human soldiers. Orvani engineers talked with human engineers. Species that had never trusted each other before were now planning together. "We have lost 60% of our forces," Rachel said. Her voice was calm, but everyone could see how much pain was behind her eyes. "The Hollow are pushing closer every hour. At this rate, they will break through our defenses by tomorrow morning." A Kreth commander raised one of his clawed hands. "What do you suggest, Lieutenant?" "We need to counterattack," Rachel said. "Not to win. We cannot win. But we can hit them hard enough to slow them down." Buy more time for the civilian evacuations. The Kreth commander looked at her. You want us to attack an enemy that has already destroyed most of our fighters? That is suicide. Yes, Rachel admitted. It probably is. Silence filled the room. Then Sergeant Daniel Cho stood up. I will lead the attack, he said. I need volunteers. I will not order anyone to come with me. He looked around the room. No one moved. No one spoke. Then the Kreth commander stood up. His mandibles clicked together softly. Before this week, I thought humans were weak, he said. I thought you were foolish and reckless. I was wrong. He walked over to stand next to Daniel. I will fight with you. One by one, others stood up. Human soldiers, Kreth warriors, Orvani technicians who had never held a weapon before. Even some of the wounded Molken who could barely walk. Daniel Cho looked at all of them. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. Then let us show the Hollow what we are made of. The video showed the counterattack. It was brutal and chaotic. Humans and aliens fought side by side against the metal monsters. They screamed battle cries in a dozen different languages. They bled together, they died together, but they pushed the Hollow back. Not far, not for long, just enough to give the civilians another day of hope. In the Grand Chamber, the alien representatives had forgotten about their vote. They had forgotten about expelling humanity. They could only watch as beings they had called primitive taught them the true meaning of courage. The video was not finished yet. The worst was still to come. Day 7 of the siege. The final day. The video showed the last piece of the human district that was still standing. Everything else had been destroyed. Buildings that once held homes and shops and schools were now just piles of smoking rubble. The streets were filled with broken machines and fallen soldiers from both sides. Over 30,000 alien civilians were crowded into the last underground shelters. They sat in darkness, holding their children, waiting for either rescue or death. Above them, 847 humans still fought to keep them alive. Rachel Kim stood on the roof of the command center. She was looking at 3 transport ships that had just landed in the center of the district. These ships had come from a nearby colony. They were the rescue everyone had been praying for. But Rachel did not look happy. She looked heartbroken. Captain Brian Song climbed up to join her on the roof. He was a pilot. One of the best in the human fleet. His face was covered in burns, and his left arm hung useless at his side. But he was still standing. He was still fighting. How many can they carry? Brian asked. Rachel's voice was barely a whisper. 10,000. Maybe 11 if we pack them tight. Brian looked down at the crowd of aliens below. Over 30,000 of them. Families, children, elders. All of them waiting for a chance to escape. That is not enough, he said. No, Rachel agreed. It is not. They stood in silence for a moment. Both of them knew what had to happen next. Both of them knew what they had to do. Brian spoke first. The Hollow blockade is still up there. Those ships will not make it through unless something distracts the enemy. Rachel nodded slowly. I know. We cannot ask our people to do this. We will not ask, Rachel said. We will just tell them the truth, and then we will let them choose. The video showed the gathering that happened next. All the remaining human soldiers came together in the central square. They were tired beyond words. Many of them could barely stand. Their uniforms were torn and bloody. Their faces showed weeks of fear and pain and loss. Rachel stood before them. She did not try to hide the tears in her eyes. I am not going to lie to you, she said. We have 3 transport ships. They can carry 10,000 people. There are over 30,000 civilians in those shelters. No one spoke. Everyone understood. The ships cannot escape while the Hollow blockade is active, Rachel continued. Someone needs to attack the Hollow command ship. Not to destroy it. We do not have the firepower for that. But we can distract it. We can make it focus on us instead of the transports. She paused. Her voice cracked slightly when she spoke again. Anyone who joins this attack will not come back. I want to be clear about that. This is not a mission with a small chance of survival. This is a mission with no chance of survival. You will die. The silence stretched on. Rachel waited for someone to argue. She waited for someone to refuse. She waited for someone to suggest a different plan. No one did. Sergeant Daniel Cho stepped forward. "I volunteer." Private Tommy Lee stepped forward. His shoulder was wrapped in bloody bandages. He could barely lift his weapon. "I volunteer." Dr. Jenny Yoon stepped forward. She had taken off her white coat and picked up a rifle. "I volunteer." One by one, every single human in that square stepped forward. Not one person stayed behind. Rachel felt her heart break and swell with pride at the same time. An Orvani elder pushed through the crowd. Her crystal body was cracked and dim, but her voice was strong. "You cannot do this," she said. "You have fought for us for 7 days. You have bled for us. You have died for us. Now you must let us save you." Daniel shook his head gently. "These ships will not survive without a distraction, and the only pilots who know the attack patterns are human. This is our job." "Then we will come with you," the Orvani said. "We will fight beside you." "No." Daniel put his hand on her shoulder. It was a gentle touch, full of kindness. "Your job is to survive. Your job is to take care of your people. Our job is to make sure you get that chance." The Orvani stared at him. "Why? Why would you do this? We are not your people. We are not even your species." Daniel smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was real. "You have been under our protection for 7 days," he said. "That makes you our people. That makes you family. And humans do not leave family behind." The loading of the transport ships began. The alien civilians were guided out of the shelters and into the waiting vessels. They moved quickly and quietly. Everyone knew there was no time to waste. Many of them tried to thank the human soldiers as they passed. Some offered words. Some offered gestures of respect. Some could only cry. The Kreth commander from the counterattack stopped in front of Rachel. He had lost one of his arms in the fighting. Green blood still dripped from the wound. "I will tell everyone what you did here," he said. "I will tell the entire galaxy." Rachel shook her head. "It does not matter if anyone knows. What matters is that you survive." The transport ships lifted off. They rose into the dark sky, carrying 30,000 lives toward safety, and below them, 847 humans prepared for their final battle. Brian Song climbed into a damaged gunship. It was barely able to fly. The weapons were half broken. The shields were gone. It did not matter. "All units," Rachel's voice came through the radio. "Begin the attack." The video showed the humans flying straight toward the hollow command ship. It was massive, the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and armor. Fighting it was like fighting a god. They fought anyway. Brian Song flew his gunship directly into the main cannon of the command ship. The explosion disabled the weapon for 90 seconds. It was enough time for the transports to slip past. Tommy Lee crashed his vehicle into a hollow fighter squadron. He took 6 enemy ships with him. Daniel Cho led a ground team into the enemy's communication center. They destroyed it before they were overwhelmed, and Rachel Kim broadcast one final message as the hollow closed in around her. "To whoever finds this recording," she said, her voice calm and clear even at the end, "tell them we were here. Tell them humans were here. Tell them we did not abandon our friends." The screen went white, then black, then silence. The grand chamber was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The holographic display had gone dark, but no one could look away from where Rachel Kim's face had been just moments before. Ambassador Kevin Park stood alone on his small platform. Tears ran freely down his face. He did not try to hide them. He was not ashamed of crying for his people. He was proud of them. He would always be proud of them. For a long time, no one spoke. The weight of what they had just witnessed pressed down on every being in the room. The laughter and mockery from an hour ago seemed like a distant memory now. It seemed like something from a different world. Finally, Kevin broke the silence. 31,294 beings escaped Colony 17, he said. His voice was soft but steady. Kreth. Orvani. Mulkin, Velthari, members of species who voted today to expel humanity from this federation. They are alive because 847 humans decided that their lives mattered more than their own. He looked up at the alien representatives. They could not meet his eyes. You called us primitive, Kevin continued. You called us violent and short-lived and worthless. Maybe you were right about some of those things. We do not live as long as you. Our technology is not as advanced. We have made many mistakes throughout our history. He paused and took a deep breath. But when the hollow came, we did not run. When your federation abandoned those colonists, we stayed. We fought. We died. Not for glory. Not for recognition. Not even because we thought we could win. Kevin's voice grew stronger. We stayed because it was right. We stayed because there were people who needed help, and we were the only ones who could give it. We stayed because humans do not calculate the value of a life based on species or importance or political advantage. Every life matters to us. Every single one. The Thornari representative began to move. The entire chamber turned to watch. The Thornari were the oldest species in the Federation. They looked like ancient trees given the ability to walk and speak. No one had heard their voice in 40 years. Some believed they had simply stopped caring about the affairs of younger species. But now the old Thornari rose from its seat. Its wooden body creaked with the effort. Its voice, when it finally spoke, sounded like wind moving through a forest. I have watched civilizations rise and fall for 10,000 years, the Thornari said. I have seen empires built on conquest crumble to dust. I have seen species destroy themselves with greed and fear and hatred. The ancient being turned its gaze toward Kevin. But I have never witnessed what I have just seen. Humans call it sacrifice. They call it love. They call it duty. We older species had words for these things once, but we forgot them long ago. We became too concerned with power and survival to remember why survival mattered in the first place. The Thornari bowed its massive head toward the human ambassador. It was a gesture of deep respect, something no Thornari had ever given to a younger species. Perhaps it is time we learned these words again. Perhaps humanity can teach us. The chamber remained silent. But something had changed. The air felt different. The weight of thousands of years of prejudice and superiority was beginning to crack. Counselor Draven slowly stood up. His forearms hung limp at his sides. His blue skin had turned pale. He looked like a man who had just woken up from a terrible dream. He started, then stopped. His three mouths tried to form words, but could not find them. He tried again. I have spent my entire life believing that humans were beneath us. I have said cruel things. I have laughed at your pain. I have voted today to cast you out of this federation like garbage. Draven's voice broke. Something that looked like a tear ran down his alien face. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I do not know if you can ever forgive me for that. Kevin looked at the being who had mocked and insulted humanity for years. He could have been angry. He could have thrown Draven's words back in his face. He could have demanded punishment and justice. But that was not what Rachel would have wanted. That was not what any of those 847 heroes would have wanted. Forgiveness is not the hard part, Kevin said quietly. The hard part is remembering. The hard part is making sure this never happens again. He looked around the chamber at all the species gathered there. Colony 17 should never have been abandoned. The Federation should never have left those people behind. If we are going to move forward together, that cannot happen again. Not to humans. Not to anyone. The Kreeth ambassador stepped forward. Its mandibles clicked with emotion as its translator worked to find the right words. The humans who saved my people. They knew they were going to die. Kevin nodded. They knew. And they chose this freely? No one forced them? No one forced them. They volunteered. Every single one. The Kreeth was silent for a long moment. Then it did something that no Kreeth had ever done for any species outside their own. It bowed deeply, folding its multiple legs beneath its body, in a gesture reserved only for their most honored ancestors. Then humanity is not primitive, the Kreeth said. Humanity is what the rest of us have forgotten how to be. One by one, other representatives began to bow. The Orvani dimmed their lights in respect. The Molken lowered their massive heads. Even the Velthari, led by a trembling Councillor Draven, showed their deepest sign of honor. Kevin stood in the center of it all, alone on his small platform, representing a species that had just proven itself to the entire galaxy. "The vote must be recorded," he said. "I want every species in the galaxy to see how this council voted today. And I want them to know what changed your minds." The vote happened again. This time, every single species voted no. Humanity would not be expelled. Humanity would remain in the Federation, but more than that, something else had changed. For the first time in 200 years, humanity was not seen as the youngest and weakest member of the galactic community. They were seen as something more, something the other species had lost and needed to find again. 1 year later, a memorial was built at the rebuilt Colony 17. The names of all 847 humans were carved into black stone. Beside them were the names of 212 aliens who had joined them in the final stand. At the base of the memorial, in every language of the Federation, a single phrase was written: "They did not leave us behind." Ambassador Kevin Park visited every year. He brought flowers from Earth and placed them at the foot of Rachel Kim's name. He told her about the changes happening in the galaxy. He told her that her sacrifice had not been forgotten, and sometimes, when he stood there alone in the quiet, he could almost hear her voice. "We did good, Kevin. We did good." And they had. They truly had.